I suppose it doesn't hurt to tell you now. Earlier today, someone spotted a suspicious outlander sneaking around inside the Irodori Festival warehouse down by the docks.
What? The books are missing?
Shh, not so loud.
And would be a great misfortune if A Legend of Sword would not be released on schedule. And quite a disappointment for Chen Yu as well.
Author of A Legend of Sword is J.U. Sounds familiar. Hey, isn't that Xingqiu's pen name?
Shh. Well, hello, guys.
Huh? It's you! Why are you here?
I'm here on behalf of the Tenryou Commission, of course. Is that surprising?
Not what we were referencing, Sarah, but that's okay.
No, Sarah, Paimon wasn't talking about you! So, Tone-Deaf Bard. The suspicious outlander in the warehouse wouldn't happen to be you, would it?
Considering the evidence, it appears that the suspicious outlander is indeed me.
Why, Venti?
As I have told you, you are a suspect. Before your allegations of theft and illegal entry as a stowaway are cleared, you are to remain silent. Don't make me say it again. Traveler, Paimon, do you know this self-proclaimed bard from Mondstadt?
Well, I definitely can't say he's a complete stranger. You could say we are quite familiar.
Listen, Sarah. Knowing him, it's safe to say that he wasn't behind the theft.
Just a moment ago, we caught him in a dandelion wine crate near the Sailing Breeze.
Oh, so you shipped yourself here.
Oh, Venti! You didn't really come here illegally, did you?
Ouch, your words wound me. We've been apart for so long, and the moment we meet again, all I'm greeted with is grilling questions and suspicious glares. You arrived in Inazuma via similar means, or so I heard.
Nah, let's not.
Similar means?
Let's not bring up past now.
I merely jest. Well, once I received the invitation letter, I couldn't help but want to come to Inazuma a little early. It was then that I happened upon a cargo ship bound for Inazuma transporting dandelion wine. So, naturally, I decided to set sail with them.
He's a drunk, through and through.
Once aboard, I found the captain to be a kindred spirit, and I was treated to an abundance of fine liquor along the way. I must have fallen asleep in the cargo crate while carefully comparing the tastes of dandelion wine and Inazuman sake. And when I woke up, I found myself in this warehouse with a Tenryou Commission general glaring at me from atop the grate.
Coming from Venti, this story is quite believable. But it still feels a bit...
Shameless.
No. If that's the case, did you happen to hear anything unusual?
Actually, I did hear some faint footsteps around me a couple of times, but I didn't consider the sound anything out of the ordinary.
Hmm? But if you clearly heard something, why didn't you feel it was unusual?
Oh, I seem to understand now. When it comes to burglars, they are generally associated with prying or rummaging through things. What Venti means is that he did not hear anything unusual like that.
Oh, they knew what they were looking for. Huh.
As for the sound of footsteps, because this is a warehouse where many goods are coming in and out each day, it is quite normal for people to be walking around.
I see. But if that's the case, then we're back to square one regarding the stolen books.
No, what Albedo just told you was it's an inside job. Or at least somebody who knows where it was located.
And might even have a key. And third...
There must be more than one criminal.
I knew you'd catch on, Traveler. One person couldn't possibly transport so many heavy books in such a short window of time. It must have been a team effort. It goes without saying that Venti clearly does not match up with our culprits.
Yes, I agree with your reasoning. Mr. Hirayama, the Tenryou Commission will continue by investigating the warehouse staff.
I suppose I'm free as a bird then.
Nope.
Not so fast. Even though we've cleared the theft allegations, we still haven't ascertained whether your arrival in Inazuma was legal or not.
Aw, 'tis a shame. I thought surely after my honest account you might let me off the hook.
Sara's quite the meticulous one. So, where's your invitation letter, Venti?
Yes, the invitation letter. I'm truly sorry. I can't seem to remember where I may have put it. Didn't bring any luggage with me, and the letter was too big to fit in my pocket. So, I kept it in my hand the whole trip. Strange. Though I had a little too much to drink, I know that I kept it in a secure place.
If you were holding the invitation in your hand the whole time, then why did you put it down?
Well, to properly compare the taste of Mondstadt wine and Inazuman sake, I had to hold a glass in each hand.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't both hold the invitation and a glass at the same time.
In which case, I believe there's only one place it could be. Have you figured it out, traveler?
No, I don't know, honestly. On the ship still? I don't know.
Huh? You're way ahead of Paimon. Do you two already know where the invitation letter is?
In his shoe, in his cap, in his hat. Cape, not cap. Probably in his hat.
Ah, yes. I remember now. I knew you'd help me find it.
This is indeed an invitation letter issued by the Yashiro Commission. Now that we've confirmed this guest's identity, I have no further questions. However, starting tonight, I would advise you to stay at the International Trade Association. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be leaving now.
Mr. Hiroyama, I'm Calx. We had originally arranged to meet today.
Ah, yes, so you are Calx. I'm very sorry that you've arrived in Inazuma only to find such a mess. These are the materials regarding the 5 Kasen. All the information that we could find is compiled here.
About the 5 Kasen. Long ago, there were 5 legendary poets in Inazuma. Supremely gifted in music and writing, they were honored as the 5 Kasen, meaning 5 fairies of singing and poetry. It is said that the shogun loved their works profoundly, and that every year one of them would go to the Tenshukaku and present their new poetry collection for the shogun's perusal. The 5 Kasen are known as Suiko, Aoi no Okina, Akihito, Sumizomi, Kuronushi, respectively. But their real names are lost in history. According to a widely accepted theory, tales of the 5 Kasen had once been repeatedly adapted and performed on stage, with the 5 characters each dressed in a distinct color: green, blue, red, white, and black. Over time, theater-goers started referring to them by these colors, hence the names we see today. Still, there exists other theories. For instance, some believe Suiko was named after his dwelling, a thatched cottage named Suiko Hut. Some also say that the Aka in Akihito was derived from the poet's habit of marking his words with a scarlet red seal. About the tales of the 5 Kasen. Everyone in Inazuma knows the tale of the 5 Kasen, and stories featuring them were once all the rage in Inazuma. What is unfortunate, however, is that despite their popularity and abundance at the time, not much detail survived to tell today. Most were probably lost during the Great Calamity 500 years ago. According to existing literature, during the Golden Age when many such stories were being created, they usually followed the same set of rules: 4 poems in succession, each telling a fragment of the story from a Kasen's point of view, with the 4 together complementing the whole tale. What was curious was that no single chapter seemed to be narrated from Kuronushi's perspective. Five Kasen Summary. Suiko. A free, sake-loving soul born into an ordinary family. Some say he got the name Suiko from Suiko Hut, the thatched cottage he lived in. Aoi no Okina. An old man accomplished in chess. In addition to poems, he has also left behind a few novels. Some say he was actually a shogunate official who had not made a name until his senior years. Others say he was not a human, but a very old kitsune in human form. I think we've met Okina, now that I think about it. Akihito, a talented swordsman, who most likely came from a martial family. Some say his name was derived from his habit of marking his works with a scarlet red seal. Sumizomi. She was once a shrine maiden skilled in floral arts and dancing. Later, she became the shogun's personal attendant. Some say she resigned from her position after she became famous, and devoted herself to artistic creation. Others say she kept serving the shogun into her old age. Kuro Nushi. Little is known about him, nor does anyone know who he really is. Maybe this explains the more varied versions of his identity and personality from story to story as compared to the other 4 Kasen. Les ...
Yes, it's just as I had suspected. Monikers such as Suiko and Aoi no Okina aren't the real names of the 5 Kasen. Though there were once many stories regarding each of the 5 Kasen, the validity of their contents can no longer be verified in present times. Alas, what a shame. But, at the very least, we know that most of the stories were written according to a similar style, so there is still something we may glean from this.
So, is the info useful for your paintings, Albedo?
To some extent, yes. However, I must admit that it is still lacking and, fails to fulfill the most crucial element. Inspiration.
All you need to do is follow through with what's in your own heart and create something that you yourself find interesting. Oh, and there's one more thing I need to ask of everyone. Tomorrow morning, Mr. Genyu, the author of A Legend of Sword, will be arriving in Inazuma by boat. If you see him, please do not mention the stolen novels for the time being. I'll be going then.
Well, seems there's nothing more we can do here. Let's go.
What are you up to, Venti?
Huh? Venti? What are you doing over there? You don't want us to leave you behind, do you?
Traveler, Albedo, would you mind coming over here for a moment?
What is it, Venti? A piece of paper?
Indeed. When I awakened to find myself in the warehouse this morning, I discovered this paper in the cargo crate where I was sleeping. I didn't think much of it then. I thought it was merely a scrap piece of paper that had fallen into the cargo. After a quick glance, I stuffed it into a place nearby. But on second thought, I think it's worth having you take a look at what's written on it.
The 5 Kasen Splendor Suiko. My dwelling was far from the wider world. Before my fame, my peace was disturbed. In blue clad I went before Tenshukaku to present our work, but Aoi's work was missing a page. I knelt and begged for divine wrath to be stilled, and I told what I knew of how it was lost. The previous night I had been drunk, and then a person's shadow had passed over me. Some treacherous scoundrel must have stolen the poem, leading to my great loss of face.
The story told in this poem roughly boils down to Suiko getting tipsy and letting some poems that were meant for the shogun get stolen. This story sounds familiar to my ear. Where have I heard it?
Seriously? It's literally the same story you just experienced yesterday!
Oh, indeed it is. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes, I concur. The person who left this paper could quite possibly be the criminal, or even a witness to the theft. But why leave the paper here in such a fashion? And if the one who left it here was a witness, why didn't they attempt to stop the burglary?
Since we've been busy from the start of the day, let us find an inn with good drink to keep our thirst at bay.
Hey! You just sobered up and you're already thinking about more drinks?
I'm more angry about the fact that he's trying to create rhymes. Paimon.
And let's not forget that Albedo still has a portrait to complete. We don't have time to be slacking off.
No, it's fine. Let's all go for a drink together. It'll be my treat. I'm the kind of artist who can work quickly once I'm inspired. And now, it seems I've found my source of inspiration. If I use a model as reference for the piece, we must pay him back with the appropriate recompense.
Yep, I'm not surprised. Each one of these characters is eventually gonna be one of the 5 Kasen, aren't they?
In that case, we'll need to order more dishes. One year, the poet Suiko made his way to Tenshukaku and presented the Kasen's work for the shogun's perusal. But a page from the works of Aoi no Okina had been torn out, and Suiko was questioned regarding the matter. Suiko pleaded guilty. He admitted to drinking at the tavern the night before, and vaguely recalled a mysterious figure approaching while he was intoxicated.
Astrologer. Wow, you really came through, Albedo. You were able to complete the first portrait before the opening ceremony.
Yes, it really is a sight to behold. Not only does it harken to the traditional style of Inazuma, but it also makes use of modern aesthetics. My figure is particularly striking. Even though I'm sound asleep in the portrait, I still appear as glorious as always.
Hey, don't get too full of yourself, Tone Deaf Bard. You were just a model. The person in the artwork isn't actually you.
The next one will be Aoi no Okina of the 5 Kasen.
Albedo, might I suggest waiting a little before starting on the next one? Who knows? You might soon discover another story.
Another story?
I believe he's referring to the possibility of finding another paper with tales of the 5 Kasen. According to the reference materials I was given, we've only found the first of a total of 4 chapters.
Do you think the mysterious person who left the first paper will strike again?
It certainly is a possibility. Also, there are some points regarding the stories of the 5 Kasen that have left me rather curious. For example, the reference materials make mention of 5 legendary figures, yet all the popular stories only consist of 4 parts. It appears that throughout all the stories, there is never a chapter dedicated to Kuronushi.
Enjoy the blessing of Lesser Lord Kusanali. A nation blessing now 10% off.
The passenger ship from Liyue that we're supposed to meet should be arriving soon. Let's go to the docks. You know that Shincho will be on board, right? So we should be careful not to say anything about the stolen novels. Hi there! You must be visiting from Liyue to participate in the Irodori Festival. We'll be your guides and we'll take you onto the island. Huh? Is it Paimon or have we met somewhere before?
Yes, in fact we have. I'm Shu from Feiyun Commerce Guild. Aboard this ship we have calligraphers, painters, and even players of Theater Mechanicus.
Oh man, Theater Mechanicus.
We heard that they'd be demonstrating the game and letting people try Theater Mechanicus at the Irodori Festival. So the guild manager instructed Master and I to take the opportunity to come to Inazuma and investigate the product's potential.
Oh, speaking of which, where's the young master?
Master, he's,
Whoa! Shincho's just sitting there, sound asleep.
What? Oh. It's the Traveler and Paimon. I presume you are guests in Inazuma as well? It seems fate has destined our paths to cross once again.
Oh, we aren't actually guests. We're actually guides for the Irodori Festival.
You doing okay there, Shincho?
Please, no need to worry. I was a little too caught up in a novel on the voyage here. When I finally realized what time it was, the first rays of dawn were already peeking over the horizon. Huh? That's odd.
Don't tell me you've lost yours too.
There was a piece of paper underneath my bag. Strange. I don't recall seeing it there before.
Wow, our mysterious person strikes real fast. The 5 Kasen Splendor. Aoi no Okina. Glorious court life was my youth and my old age a moonlit haze. I had not wished to behave so treacherously, but my very life was threatened. So I sought out my old work and hid them in my clothes. I do not understand the reason behind all that has happened, only that the mysterious person's motives must be perverse. This poem was dedicated to Akihito, who to my great sorrow was banished.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's from the same series as the story we found before. Even the handwriting looks exactly the same.
The story you found before?
Oh yeah, in the warehouse down by the poem hunt competition.
Paimon, you totally fail.
A friend of ours is on Rito to paint portraits of the 5 Kasen. You know, as part of the Irodori Festival. Poetic stories about the five Kasen have been hidden in various places nearby.
That doesn't sound suspicious, but it does sound fun. I hope he buys it.
If you can find one of the stories and give it to this friend of ours, then there's a chance you'll become the model for the next portrait.
Wait a moment. So you mean that...
You're so terrible at making up stories.
Hey! It's hard coming up with stuff on the spot like that.
there's a chance of meeting Calx in person?
Oh. Xingqiu's not as smart as he looks.
I knew that Calx would attend the Irodori festival, but convincing my father to let me come to Inazuma was proving to be quite the high hurdle. I had to really rack my mind to come up with the excuse of evaluating the investment value of Theater Mechanicus. It is a most rare opportunity for both Calx and I to be in Inazuma together, but it seemed he would be too busy with the portraits to meet with me. So, I felt quite disappointed for some time now. To be honest, my works have drawn little interest in Liyue. However, the novels are selling quite well in Inazuma with the help of Calx's beautiful illustrations. His work is truly exquisite. Oh my, I was beginning to get carried away there. Let us depart, quickly now.
Luckily, the idea of meeting Albedo managed to draw Xingqiu's attention and keep the situation under wraps.
How are you? And who is this accompanying you?
You must be Calx. Please, call me Xingqiu.
And you may call me Albedo, then.
No, that would be most improper.
Xingqiu.
Why not? Seeing as we're both friends of the Traveler, it'd be more convenient for us to use our real names. Besides, we've already corresponded with each other many times before. In fact, I feel a bit self-conscious seeing you act so politely.
It's not just you, Albedo. We haven't seen Xingqiu act this awkward before either.
I learned some new tips and manners today.
You guys, it's certainly not good taste for you two to be teasing me like that. Oh, by the way, we happened to find a story from the poem hunt competition at the docks. I heard that you are collecting them.
Poem hunt?
You know, that thing where we have to find pieces of paper with stories of the five Kasen? Venti found one, and then he was allowed to be a model for one of your portraits.
Huh? Oh, yes, that's right.
I'm glad that Albedo catches up.
I understand the story now. Thank you. If all of you are free, why don't we discuss this over a meal?
Oh, well, about that.
Do you have other plans, Xingqiu?
No, not at all. Speaking of dining, Shimura's unagi chasuke is quite delicious. Would you like to go there?
Shimura's. Unfortunately, today is a bit windy. How about Uyu Restaurant instead?
That's perfectly fine with me. But I must first unpack my luggage. Let's meet later at Uyu Restaurant.
Something didn't quite add up just now. Traveler, what are your thoughts?
Xingqiu was a little suspicious.
Huh? Xingqiu's suspicious? Hey, what are you two talking about?
Paimon, you read the poem, right?
Let's see. Suiko lost Aoi no Okina's poem in a drunken stupor. So, Aoi no Okina recovered the poem and gave it to some mysterious person. Huh? Wait a minute. Could today's story be hinting that the one who stole the latest copies of A Legend of Sword is Xingqiu himself?
If Xingqiu had only just arrived in Inazuma, how could he recommend Shimura's chasuke?
Nah.
Moreover, he didn't raise any questions when I suggested another place because of the windy weather. This means he knows that Shimura's is an open-air restaurant.
You have a great point, Albedo, because I was actually kind of wondering how he knew things by name. Because Inazuma's borders have only just recently opened.
Are you saying that Xingqiu has already been in Inazuma for some time? And that he's only pretending he just arrived?
Yes, that is indeed my conclusion. I think there must be some deeper motive at play here. The story also tells us that Aoi no Okina flees with a poem because of a threat.
Oh? Could Shinjo be in danger?
It's difficult to say at this point. But given that Uyu Restaurant is indoors, it'll be easy for us to detect anyone following or eavesdropping on us. I think it should be safe for us to talk there. I'll be relying on your assistance to get to the bottom of this matter.
You got it, Home Slice.
Good. Then let's head to Uyu Restaurant. I don't see anyone suspicious around. It seems clear for the moment. Let's go inside and wait for Xingqiu. I will try to break the ice by talking about our work on novels and illustrations. If he really is hiding something, then he might feel even more nervous than we do. If we start by talking about our work creating novels, perhaps he will lower his guard.
Oh, come to think of it, Shinjo mentioned that he'd like to thank you for finishing the illustrations on time. He said they looked amazing despite the time you had.
Is that so? That is also a very valuable clue.
That's right. A signed first edition is going to become quite the collectible. I've got to get my hands on a copy.
I've seen Genyu's signature before. His handwriting is super neat. He must be really diligent about his style.
He'll be there in person on the day of the release, so we'll get a good look at him then. I hear that he's actually pretty young.
Haven't been able to sail at all. But the weather finally cleared up today, so we have some fresh catch.
So the weather at sea has been bad these past few days?
It sure has. A few guests from Liyue were just telling me that their boat was heaving and rolling all the way here. They couldn't do anything but sleep the entire trip.
Oh, this might be some useful information. You were worried you might not have an appetite because you didn't sleep well. Now's our chance. Let's talk to Shinjo and see if he says anything useful.
To be honest, there wasn't much to see. Just water all around, morning to night. The sheer monotony of the trip caused everyone to grow a little impatient. So, when the peak of Mount Yogo finally appeared in the distance as we approached the islands of Inazuma, everyone crowded the deck to have a look. However, the ship sailed along at a crawling pace. It took a whole day from the time we saw the mountain peak to the time we docked.
Paimon didn't catch anything suspicious so far. Oh, right! If it took an entire day to reach the docks, then it would have been pouring rain at the time they saw the top of the mountain.
Albedo, I've long wished to express my sincerest gratitude for providing the illustrations in my novel. My novel didn't sell well in Liyue, so I must admit that I had some reservations regarding its potential. Yet you've consistently managed to select the most important scene of the chapter for your illustrations. This made me feel as though what I was trying to express could be understood after all.
Thank you. However, I took some risks in the illustrations, so I'm feeling slightly uneasy myself. Light novel illustrations are typically centered around the characters, but this time, I adopted a different approach in the illustration for the last chapter.
Well, that scene was intended to depict the change in the world, so I thought it very fitting to draw only scenery.
Doesn't sound like anything suspicious has come up so far.
No, there was a crack in his alibi. My illustrations were sent for printing the moment they arrived in Inazuma. So, logically speaking, there's no way he could possibly know what the illustrations look like. Xingqiu, we have something very important to ask you now.
Oh? Why the solemn looks all of a sudden?
What's with the facade, huh? Huh? Time to talk.
The latest installment of A Legend of Sword will only be revealed at the Irodori festival. Even we, the creators, haven't received a sample copy. If that's the case, how could you know what my illustrations look like?
Well...
The jig's up, Shinjo. You were already in Inazuma before today, weren't you? Are you in some kind of danger but can't tell us the truth? Don't worry. The Traveler and Albedo are no pushovers. We can help you.
No, please. You misunderstand me.
Oh, well, if this isn't a coincidence, I didn't expect to see everyone here.
Huh? Tone Deaf Bard, what are you doing here?
I just bumped into Kujo Sara a moment ago. She said that the Tenryou Commission has apprehended the criminal who stole all those copies of A Legend of Sword.
Oh no. The person they apprehended. Was it by chance an editor named Onodera?
Apologies, Kujo-Sara didn't mention a name.
Too late to explain. We must make haste and rescue Onodera. You mustn't take him away. I can explain everything.
No need to worry, Genyu. I've just explained everything to Madame Kujo, and Kuroda has testified for me.
It appears quite a few people are aware of the situation now. There's no use keeping it a secret. In the end, I'm the one responsible for this whole predicament. To be frank, calligraphy is not my strong point, so signing events are really not my forte.
These past few days, Genyu has been actively practicing his handwriting. However, it takes time to sign each book, and we realized the time we reserved for the signing was not nearly enough. So I came up with the idea of moving the new books from the warehouse to my place. That way, Genyu could use these few days to sign them all. I thought everything would work out without a hitch. I never expected that someone would immediately realize that the books were missing from the warehouse. To make things worse, I was on vacation and staying with Genyu in my house these past few days. I had no idea that the situation had turned into such a huge mess.
Nadera, I think you should explain the truth regarding the stolen books to the rest of the people on Rito.
I just realized that this person's named after another editor for manga in a different anime. I wonder if that was intentional. Or if I should be worried.
Let's leave the past behind us now. Our first priority is to help Genyu with his signatures. How is your progress so far?
My progress is not what I had hoped for. Even after working through the night these past few days, I've only finished perhaps 1/10 of the signatures.
Oh, no wonder Shincho looked so sleepy today.
It seems I'm really in for it now.
Even though Shincho still has to deal with his handwriting issue, Paimon somehow feels a little relieved now.
I always used to prefer working alone in my workshop, but I've come to realize that solving problems with others also has its merits.
We also owe a special ode of gratitude to the mysterious person who has been leaving important info for us along the way.
It appears that Onodera and I were spotted when we were moving the books. Albedo, may I ask you one thing? Are you able to include me in a portrait as well? Not only do I owe the successful resolution of today's incident to that story, but I also hope that I'll remember this lesson.
No problem. Considering the similarities between the portrait and the events that have taken place, your proposal is very reasonable.
Please be mindful of your personal safety at all times.
That figure was none other than Aoi no Okina himself. This turn of events had begun with an unnamed individual, under whose coercion, Aoi no Okina was forced to take drastic measures to retrieve a page of poetry. He knew nothing of this individual's true intentions. All he knew was that the poem had to do with an old acquaintance, Akahito.
Albedo really is something. He finished the portrait of Aoi no Okina in no time at all. Wonder how Shincho's calligraphy training is going at Uyu Restaurant. Hey, do you think whoever left those stories for us could be hiding somewhere nearby?
It's a very good possibility.
Oh, hello? Mr. Storywriter? Are you here? Could you please help Shincho with something? He's a friend of ours and the release of his new book is super important to him.
The kitty cat.
What's that sound? It was just a cat. Looks like we can't make them reveal themselves that easily. It's getting late now. Well, let's go back and get some rest. We still have to go to the docks and wait for another ship tomorrow morning.
Aw, I was hoping it was a playable character. I don't think it is. I'm so sad now. Theater Mechanicus.
It's already time for us to be at the docks. Let's go! The arrival schedule says ship stopover, 1 person. Does that mean we're only welcoming 1 guest today?
Looks like Kazuha. Yeah. Hi there.
Greetings, traveler in Paimon. I heard there would be guides for the Irodori festival, but I didn't expect it would be you two.
We didn't expect to see you either! Returning as a guest for the Irodori Festival, no doubt.
I was a little surprised myself when I received the invitation. But after wandering the outside world for so long, it's good to have an opportunity to return to my homeland and pay respects to my old friends.
Kazuha, when we saw you in the distance just now, you seemed to be looking for something. What happened?
Ah, yes. You see, when I came off the boat with everyone just now, I suddenly heard light footsteps around me. I could tell they were not footsteps of a regular passenger. But by the time I turned around, the person had already disappeared. I only heard a splash come from below the pier. Even though I didn't manage to catch a glimpse of them, I found this strange piece of paper by my feet.
Oh, does the paper happen to have a poem written on it?
Huh. How did you know? Please, have a look.
Long have I been famed, and since my youth I had great ambition. I stamped every new verse with a scarlet seal, and thus I was known to all. But last year, when we presented our verses, mine was found to be taken from poets past. For the theft and deception, I was banished into the wilderness. The 5 radiant lights never shall be again. Ah, how the tides do shift.
Last time, Aoi no Okina's poem ended with a reference to Akihito. And sure enough, this is a story about him. Story this time basically says that Akihito got his name from his love of red seals. However, the shogun discovered that he had committed plagiarism, and he was soon exiled.
I too was once wanted as a criminal by the shogunate. So I'm not all that different from Akihito mentioned in this story.
Traveler, what are you thinking about?
Maybe it can help Shingsho.
Ah, by the way, you mentioned that your friend has been struggling because he's unable to sign his name quickly, right?
Sorry guys, ignore the dog.
In Liyue and Inazuma, there is a saying, that which has been stamped has also been signed. Perhaps using a seal could be a feasible solution. I sometimes carve things to pass the time. If you wish to create a stamp for his seal, I might be able to help.
Wow, that's an idea! Quick, let's go tell Albedo!
Stamped seal, huh? Let me think.
I've come to the conclusion that it must be Yae doing this.
Indeed, it is an efficient solution. If we use a stamp, then Shingsho won't have to struggle with his handwriting anymore. However, since Shingsho's signature has been previously revealed to the readers, it would seem insincere if he only used the stamped seal for his new books. But I have another idea.
That's it, Genyu. Your writing has greatly improved today, which means yesterday's intensive training was effective.
My apologies, but I simply can't do it anymore. My hands are so sore that I can't even move them anymore. I should have known better than to read novels during calligraphy class.
You just had a 10-minute break. Come on, you can do this.
Mr. Hiroyama, we found a solution that might just solve our dilemma. In both Liyue and Inazuma, seals are widely used as the equivalents of a signature. If we use a stamp to leave the author's seal on the books, then we could make the signature process a lot easier. Of course, a seal on its own is not enough. So, I propose that each signature consists of 2 parts. First, we'll use a personalized seal. We can simply carve one using Chenyu's signature as the design. In addition, I'll also design a simple but elegant pattern that's easy for Chenyu to write. That way, he will only need to draw a simple pattern on each book.
Let me think. Alright, I think that would work. Not only does it still involve the author's own handwriting, but the result should be very beautiful as well.
So, what you mean to say is, I've been saved from this predicament?
Mr. Hirayama, it suddenly occurred to me that the reason we gave up on live book signings previously was because it would take too long for the author to sign each book. But if we adopted Calx's proposed method, we might have enough time to do signatures at the live event.
Oh no.
And if all the authors signed their books in the same fashion, then Genyu's signature wouldn't look out of place.
Wait, no, this is a good thing.
Well, if you think it's feasible, I would certainly be happy to design signatures for the other authors as well.
Yes, and you may leave carving the stamps to me.
In that case, I shall contact the other 2 authors participating in the new release event.
Looks like everyone's on board with the idea.
I'm sorry to have kept you busy for so long, Genyu. Please, take the next few days to have a good rest. We'll handle everything from here.
We still have some time to burn. Where should we go next?
Traveler, there you are.
Oh, it's Ayaka! And Venti! That's an interesting combo.
Uh-huh.
I was just going to the festival venue to prepare the Ikebana lesson when I found a strange piece of paper on a flower stand. This bard just happened to be close by at the time. He informed me that you've also found similar papers recently. As such, we came together to find you two.
But the paper she found isn't quite the same as the ones we found before.
Here's the paper. Please have a look.
The 5 Kasen Splendor, Sumizomi. I submerged the verses into clear water, and the truth did emerge.
And even though there are only 2 short sentences, neither of them are next to the title or centered on the page. The position of the writing seems to indicate that there is other content written on this paper besides these 2 lines.
If we take the poem literally, it reads, "Dip this paper in water and see the truth naturally appear." Speaking of which, I have an ancient text at home, specializing in ancient and exotic stories. It mentions a special ink that will show itself when wet and disappear when it's dry.
So, shall we give it a whirl?
Wow, look! It's really working! More words have appeared on the paper! Let Paimon see what it says.
Going over his poetry, I found that the plagiarized piece did not have a secret seal. I submerged the verses into clear water, and the truth did emerge. The true verses were not washed away, but the text of that despicable crime faded. Aoi no Okina passed me by, just as he was writing a verse for Akihito. One storm had yet to settle, and it was already time to write new poems.
In the past, when printing was not yet well developed, handwritten text could easily become smudged in books when exposed to moisture. To ensure the text lasted longer, they'd either write using a special ink or coat the paper's surface with a waterproof coating once the writing was finished. Since Akihito's poetry collection was an important gift to be presented to the shogun, surely one of those 2 methods was used to protect it. But as for the plagiarized poems, not only would they lack Akihito's seal, but the words would also react differently when exposed to liquid.
Which means Akihito didn't plagiarize his work. He was set up!
Yes, it appears that this is the truth that Sumizomi's story is trying to convey. Although the story is saddening, I've decided on the subjects to use for Akihito and Sumizomi's portraits. Kazuha, Ayaka, would you be willing to be the models for my paintings?
I would be delighted.
Yes, as would I.
There you go. The next 2 portraits should be ready in no time.
Yes. And now that all 4 stories have all been collected, the story of the 5 Kasen is now fully completed.
Long ago, Inazuma had 5 legendary poets. People bestowed upon them the title of the 5 Kasen.
One year, the poet Suiko made his way to Tenshukaku and presented the Kasen's work for the shogun's perusal. But a page from the works of Aoi no Okina had been torn out, and Suiko was questioned regarding the matter. Suiko pleaded guilty. He admitted to drinking at the tavern the night before, and vaguely recalled a mysterious figure approaching while he was intoxicated.
That figure was none other than Aoi no Okina himself. This turn of events had begun with an unnamed individual, under whose coercion, Aoi no Okina was forced to take drastic measures to retrieve a page of poetry. He knew nothing of this individual's true intentions. All he knew was that the poem had to do with an old acquaintance, Akihito.
Akahito had once belonged to the 5 Kasen. Each poem he composed, he marked with a scarlet red seal, hence the Aka in his name. Such a distinguished writer was he, and yet one of the poems he had submitted the previous year was found to be plagiarized. Akahito was exiled for his crimes, and only 4 of the 5 Kasen remained.
Sumizome went over Akihito's poems and noticed that the plagiarized poem lacked his seal. She immersed his poetry in a stream nearby, and only on the plagiarized poem did the ink run. Aoi no Okina passed by and witnessed Sumizome's doing, which he then recorded in a poem. Thus transpired the events of Suiko's poetry submission, and this is where the story comes to an end.
What's wrong, Paimon?
Yeah. Ever since we completed the story of the 5 Kasen, there's still one thing Paimon hasn't been able to figure out. One of the 5 Kasen is called Kuranushi, right? It's just that, how could the story of the 5 Kasen finish without him appearing at all?
Oh, have you really not noticed?
The entire story is Kuronushi's. Is that it? Or perhaps he's the mysterious individual that Aoi no Okina gave the poem to?
Huh? Not noticed what? This is no time to be playing games, Tone Deaf Bard!
What he means is that the story of Kuronushi was already embedded within the 4 poems.
That's right. The key lies in the poem that Aoi no Okina wrote after seeing Sumizome rinsing the poetry collection. An average person could never understand the scene of a young girl washing Akahito's poetry collection in a stream. Even Aoi no Okina couldn't figure out the meaning behind Sumizome's actions. He was simply reminiscing and thinking about his old acquaintances. However, for the perpetrator who framed Akahito, it was completely obvious. He was worried that if this poem was seen by the Shogun, then the Shogun could discover the truth behind the plagiarism incident. If that happened, then he'd be finished. So in desperation, he threatened Aoi no Okina to make him tear out this poem.
Which means, the one who threatened Aoi no Okina is the same person that framed Akahito! What? Kuranushi?
That's right. Though there are only 4 poems, they still managed to tell the complete story of all 5 Kasen.
The story of the 5 Kasen has more or less reflected everything that's been happening around us lately. Which begs the question, is there a Kuronushi in our world as well?
A Kuranushi? In our world?
Speaking of which, I wonder if our dear Kazuha has come up with anything.
Oh, right! Kazuha! He's been pretty quiet this whole time. Let's ask him!
Please forgive my assumption, but perhaps you were thinking of the Raiden Gokuden?
The Raiden Gokuden? What's that?
It appears that Miss Kamisato and I were thinking of the same thing. But it also has much to do with the Yashiro Commission. It would be improper to speak of it here without the consent of Miss Kamisato.
It's fine. Those of us here are all trustworthy, so there isn't any harm in it. The Yashiro Commission's primary purpose is managing ceremonial and cultural affairs, and Inazuma's art of forging swords is a very important part of our culture. The Raiden Gokuden were once the top 5 schools of the forging art in Inazuma. Although these families were swordsmiths by craft, they also held many important positions in the Yashiro Commission. Unfortunately, of the 5, only the Aminoma art still maintains its artisan lineage. The descendants of the Ishin art are also still alive, but the craft has been lost to time. The descendants of the Ishin art are none other than the Kaidehara family.
Whoa! We knew Kazuha came from a noble family, but we had no idea about his connection to the Yashiro Commission and sword making.
Yes, but that's all part of the past now. The Ishin art was lost with my great-grandfather's generation. My grandfather was dissatisfied with my great-grandfather's lack of effort. When he was young, my grandfather traveled all over Tevat to find a way to revive the family business. But it was to no avail. And in my generation, our last remaining family property was lost as well.
I heard my elder brother mention that the decline of the Raiden Gokuden happened very rapidly. In the span of a few decades, 3 of the families suffered various misfortunes and disappeared completely. Later, there was speculation that all of these misfortunes stemmed from some background machinations, meaning that someone wanted to wipe out the Raiden Gokuden. However, since not every family of the Raiden Gokuden came to ruin, such explanations were treated as nothing more than a conspiracy theory.
After reading the story of the 5 Kasen, I can't help but feel like it's pointing me toward the truth behind that incident.
What exactly happened to your great-grandfather, Kazuha?
I still can't say. I need to speak with someone to verify the details. Let's meet here again at noon tomorrow. I will tell you everything I know then. Ah, you're here. It appears everyone has arrived. Last night, I visited a former servant who once worked for my family. I was able to learn the entirety of what happened all those years ago. In my great-grandfather's generation, the Ishin art was tasked with forging an important Goshinto according to an ancient forging diagram. Though all the craftsmen involved were very experienced, the process was still unsuccessful. Every blade that was forged was defective. When the deadline came, the blade still wasn't finished, so the craftsmen all fled and hid for fear of punishment. The Kaidahara clan and Yashiro Commission then conducted an investigation. My great-grandfather and the head of the Kamisato clan eventually tracked down the craftsmen near the seaside. However, they met fierce resistance from the craftsmen, and in the end they were unable to prevent them from escaping by sea. The Kaidahara clan was severely punished for the swordsmiths that had escaped, and the family gradually fell into decline. The failure to forge the blade was ultimately attributed to a lack of required skill and finesse. The Kaidahara clan and the Yashiro Commission always believed that was the case. However, the story of the 5 Kasen seems to imply that the failure didn't stem from a lack of skill, but rather, the diagram had been tampered with by someone. Might I ask you to do me a favor?
He's got them shifty eyes. He's got an idea, a plan.
Yes, I understand. I will go back and search for the diagram. Please come meet me at the Kamisato estate later.
Whoa, that's pretty old. Is it still possible to find any evidence of tampering?
At this point, we can only try our luck and see how we fare.
Although the effect is not too obvious, you can still see that some words have now started to smudge. Kazuha, this is clear evidence that this chart was indeed tampered with. Someone framed the Kaedehara clan all those years ago.
I see. But I fear that I've discovered this secret too late. When my grandfather was young, he proposed reviving the Ishin art many times to my great-grandfather. But my grandfather was only scolded for being too foolhardy. Yesterday, the former family servant said that my great-grandfather even went to the Yashiro Commission to request that diagram from the head of the Kamisato clan. He then showed that diagram to my grandfather and asked him and his subordinates to try to forge the sword. Sure enough, my grandfather also failed. My great-grandfather then told him, if you can't find the secret within, then the Ishin art deserves to fade from the world. My grandfather left Inazuma in a rage after hearing those words. He didn't ever see my great-grandfather again, even till the day of his passing. Looking back at it now, The argument between the two of them was simply meaningless.
Oh, Kazuha.
That's so sad.
Did your great-grandfather really say, if you can't find the secret within? Did he use those exact words?
Yes. The servant said that he personally heard those words, and still remembers them very clearly. My grandfather was so angry at the time that he smashed my great-grandfather's cherished bonsai tree.
If your great-grandfather thought that the Ishin art lacked finesse, then after witnessing his son's failure, wouldn't he have said something more along the lines of, your skills aren't sufficient? But instead he said, if you can't find the secret within. Don't you find that a little strange?
Huh? Oh. So you're saying my great-grandfather may have very well known that the failure was due to someone's tampering?
Yes. The current evidence suggests that is highly likely.
I apologize, but would you all please accompany me to the Tenryou Commission? After I became a wanted criminal, the Tenryou Commission seized my family's last remaining estate, which contained all of my family's old belongings. I want to inquire about the whereabouts of those belongings.
What are you all doing here? Did something happen on Rito?
We are quite the entourage. We're just here to ask about something.
Kujo Sara. Perhaps you still remember me.
Yes, I do. You're Kaedehara Kazuha, a wanted criminal during the Vision Hunt decree. However, your arrest warrant has since been repealed.
Sara, we'd like to ask about the Kaedehara clan's property that was seized by the Tenryou Commission. Do you know where all their belongings are now?
Yes, the items seized at that time are currently stored in the warehouse next to the police station.
Thank you, Sara!
Kaedehara, about the Vision Hunt decree.
That's all in the past now, Kujo Sara. There's no need to mention it again. I know you've also had your own convictions and struggles.
You guys want to talk about it?
However, may I ask something of you?
Yes? What is it?
I'd like to ask if you can handle those belongings for me. Please, sell them, and use the money to help the poor.
All right, I understand. I'll be sure to take care of it.
Since the items are scattered throughout the building, I propose we split up and look for clues.
Yes, sounds like a plan. Thanks for your help, everyone.
Must be some around here somewhere.
You're not even looking, are you, Venti?
Do you see all these pots here? Some of them are bound to have liquor inside, right?
Hey! Everyone else is trying hard to help, and you're over here looking for a drink!
I merely jest, of course. Come on, we're close to uncovering the truth now. Why do you look so worried?
Well, Paimon doesn't really get why Kazuha told Sara to sell all these belongings. What if we don't end up finding anything today? Then wouldn't Kazuha lose the chance of finding out what really happened all those years ago? You know, just saying.
I know you are worried about Kazuha, but if you ask me, he is stronger than you think. Since Kazuha made such a request to Sara, that indicates he's already made his choice. Whether we find out the truth or not today, or whatever it turns out to be, he's ready to accept it.
This flower pot was in my house for a long time. I heard that it was left behind by my great-grandfather.
Yeah, the plant seemed to have been dead for a while now.
Well, after my great-grandfather stopped studying the forging arts, he picked up the hobby of keeping bonsai plants. Most of his prized plants were given to others once he became seriously ill. But he specifically left behind this dead plant at the time, and even instructed my grandfather not to throw it away in his will. My grandfather deeply regretted that he never managed to reconcile with my great-grandfather, so he left the plant exactly as it was. But now that I think about it, my great-grandfather could very well have left it behind for other reasons.
Now that you mention it, this flower pot That is kinda suspicious.
Yes. Let's take a closer look, shall we?
It's only a bunch of blank paper.
Let's put it in some water.
Well, how did it go? Those weren't just plain old sheets of paper, were they?
Just as everyone guessed, after I sprinkled some water onto the paper, writing did indeed begin to appear on it. It is a letter, written by my great-grandfather.
Oh? What does the letter say?
It is. I'll tell you what my great-grandfather knew at the time, but before that, I wish to take you somewhere.
Kaidehara, why did you lead us to this beach?
It is. In fact, my great-grandfather and the head of the Kamisato clan tracked the fleeing swordsmiths to this very location. Our hypothesis was correct. My great-grandfather was well aware of the truth behind the defective blades. And it was right here where they encountered the culprit who framed the Kaidehara clan and the Raiden Gokaden. It reads, "To whoever reads this letter, I, Kaidehara Yoshinori, have been held to a certain secret throughout my entire life. I don't have much longer in this world, and after much consideration, I finally decided to disclose the matter. All those years ago, when I was pursuing the swordsmiths alongside Commissioner Kamisato of the Yashiro Commission, I was not injured by one of the fleeing smiths. Rather,
it was night, and after the clues led us down to shore, I waited for the culprits to show themselves. However, there were no swordsmiths in sight, only a single eccentric stranger. This stranger claimed to be the one behind the failed forgings, and said that he had been patiently waiting for us. He then threatened to destroy the Raiden Gokaden.
I was not expecting Scaramouche.
That person was of able body, and in a blink of an eye, myself and the accompanying samurai had been defeated. Commissioner Kamisato was severely wounded, and I barely escaped death myself. My hat had fortunately blunted a blow to my head. The unusual stranger could have easily claimed my life at that moment. But, after noticing my appearance, he stopped his attacks and sternly asked if I had any connection with the name Niwa. I answered that it was my father's surname, and after my father disappeared, I was adopted by the Kaedehara family. Upon hearing my answer, the stranger paused. After a long silence, he suddenly said, "Tell her this. My name is Kuni Kuzushi." He then turned and left.
So that's what really happened.
Head of the Kamisato clan was worried that my great-grandfather would be falsely accused of being involved with the perpetrator. So even on his deathbed, the master of the Kamisato clan cautioned my great-grandfather to never speak of what happened. Because the perpetrator said he would destroy the Raiden Gokaden, my great-grandfather worried that the perpetrator would still return for vengeance. So, to protect his loved ones, he closed the family business. He said, "As the leader of the Kaedehara clan, I am deeply ashamed to witness the decline of the Ishin art. But as a father, it is my priority to ensure the safety of my children and grandchildren." Yes, that's right. If my grandpa had somehow discovered the secret behind the tampered diagram all those years ago, perhaps my great-grandfather would have told him the truth. Unfortunately, he failed to catch any of the hints in my great-grandfather's words. To be honest, as I read the letter, I felt much turbulence in my heart. But now I've managed to calm myself. My great-grandfather said in the letter that he did not wish his descendants to blindly seek revenge and be deceived by things of the past. Though he was in a tight situation when he wrote these words, I feel like they are still valid nonetheless. I think what's most important for each person is not the past, but the present. Even though we must carry the burdens from the past, there are also things we wish to strive for. Therefore, knowing the truth behind what happened is enough for me. I will live on just as my great-grandfather had hoped. That being said, if the enemy from all those years ago is still lurking and plotting to stir up more trouble, then I definitely won't turn a blind eye. Thank you all for accompanying me in my search for the truth behind that incident.
Great! Now that we're done here, let's head back to Rito. Today is the final stage of the Irodori Festival. Not only will there be Shincho's signing event, but Albedo's painting of Kuranushi will also be unveiled. Look!
Hello, traveler. Paimon?
Albedo, why is the portrait of Kuranushi all covered up? Paimon wants to see what your Kuranushi portrait looks like.
Don't worry. The unveiling ceremony will be starting shortly. You'll see what it looks like then. I will say that I'm most satisfied with this particular work. I even made a special trip to see someone in order to complete it. They gave me some very valuable suggestions. Is that so? Anyway, there is still time before the ceremony. You may have a look around the venue first.
Traveler, Paimon, it's a pleasure to see you. Indeed it did. Thanks to you, the signing event went off without a hitch. And I must say, the readers seem most satisfied.
Hey! What are you two doing together? Don't think we didn't see you two chatting up a storm just now. The moment we came over, you stopped talking.
Is that so? I'm afraid you're just overthinking things.
We were merely discussing wine and food. I'm sure you two wouldn't be interested.
Speaking of good sides with sake, I personally prefer fried tofu.
Oh my goodness.
Forget it. Even if those two are plotting something, they'd still never let us know. Kazuha, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at the festival?
I came here to take in the sea breeze. Such a bustling atmosphere is never really to my liking. I knew you were still worried about me. Thank you. But please, don't worry. The things I said in front of everyone weren't just pretty-sounding excuses. Look. See this familiar harbor in front of us? Before, you could sit here all day without seeing a single ship pass through. Instead, all you would see were soldiers from the Kanjo Commission, guarding against possible intruders. But now, it's become a bustling place. Not only are foreigners coming to Inazuma again, but traffic between here and Watatsumi Island has also been picking up.
Yeah, Inazuma has already started to change, huh?
I was thinking, in some ways, each and every one of us are similar to this country. It might take a different amount of time for different people, but there will inevitably come a day when each person can let go of their burdens. And when they finally let go, they are free to follow the wind as they please.
Greetings, traveler.
Oh, Ayato! We finally get to see the busiest person of all.
Yes, there were many things which required my attention these past few days. Fortunately, the Irodori festival is proceeding smoothly. Toma sure is taking his sweet time.
Yes. Today is one of the rare occasions when Brother isn't busy. I was going to buy some books, but he said he wanted to come along. His treat. However, he forgot his wallet at home, so he asked Toma to go back and fetch it for him.
Paimon didn't think Ayato could ever be forgetful like that.
Brother always works diligently, and it's rare for him to ever put his duties to the side and relax. So, Toma and I really cherish such moments when he's forgetful.
Maybe I could just turn my diary into a light novel.
Osmanthus wine tastes the
Did
same
I
as I
just
remember.
hear that? Shinojo? I'm gonna pretend I heard nothing.
Everyone, welcome to the magnificent Irodori Festival. Today, we have ushered in the final stage of our festival. And now we will reveal the final portrait of the 5 Kasen, Kuronushi, which was done by none other than our guest artist from Mondstadt, Calx. Let's all count down together. 3, 2, 1. Huh? What's this? This piece depicts nothing but a background.
The 5 Kasen are legendary figures from ancient Inazuma. I learned from existing sources about those stories that the character of Kuronushi is the deepest and most differing of the 5 Kasen. Moreover, Kuronushi lacks a dedicated chapter among the stories. It's as if he is a behind-the-scenes role of the 5 Kasen. Perhaps we can assume that every creator had a different understanding of Kuronushi. So, in the same way, I also wanted to leave this character to everyone's own imagination. After all, the Irodori Festival is a place for everyone to express their minds through creative works.
It seems that our adventures at the Irodori Festival have come to a close.
You're forgetting something.
Huh? What are you talking about? Oh, right! We still haven't figured out who left those stories of the 5 Kasen for us to find. Really? Come on then, who is it? Tell Paimon! Well, that makes sense. Otherwise, there'd be no way to give the right paper to the right person every time. Right. Even though they were using stories to hint us toward Shincho's troubles, the real goal was to lead us to solve the secrets of the Kaidahara clan. Let's go! We'll get to the bottom of this.
Is it Ayato and his shinobi friend? Alright, I 100% believe that he used the invisible ink. Oh, there's Ayato. I see him now.
Ayato! You're the one behind the stories of the 5 Kasen! But don't you think you overdid it a little? Leading all your friends on a wild hunt like that?
As it just so happens, one of the reasons I'm here today is to explain the details behind this wild hunt.
Huh. Paimon wants to see how you'll explain yourself out of this one.
First of all, the start of this whole incident was due to mere happenstance. You see, Lady Yai happened to catch sight of Shincho and the editor carrying the books away one night. She thought it was interesting, so she asked me to tease them a bit.
It's not okay, Ayato.
Huh? So it was Miko after all! Paimon knew it! This thing had Miko written all over it!
That's right. But using the story of the 5 Kasen to guide you to the Kaidahara family's secrets was my personal touch. As for my roundabout approach, well, that was something which I had no choice but to do. I happened to notice the bonsai plants left behind by Kaedehara Yoshinori, as well as the blank papers hidden inside. I knew there was more than meets the eye regarding those papers, but it took me some time to figure out the secret behind the ink. The kind that would only appear when exposed to water. What Kaedehara Yoshinori said in the letter is very important for both the Kamisato clan and the descendants of the Kaedehara clan, especially Kazuha. The Kaedehara clan used to be subordinates of the Kamisato clan. It was my ancestors who were unable to protect them all those years ago. So now, this obligation fell on my shoulders. Although he has the right to know the truth, the closer he draws to things hidden out of sight, the closer he also draws to danger. I had to confirm whether Kazuha has both the will and ability to be privy to the truth. I yearned for a suitable opportunity to convey this matter, right up until the night when a legend of sword was smuggled away.
Yeah, it wasn't only Kazuha. You brought all of the rest of us into this plan of yours.
I figured you would ask this question eventually. I hoped that while Kazuha and Ayaka were looking for the answers together, they would have some reliable friends by their side. Reliable friends who would be willing to protect them and make measured decisions. Friends who would spare no effort to lend a helping hand in times of trouble. Because it is also very likely that you will face the same enemy together in the future. You already know the answer deep down inside, don't you?
Scaramouche.
The answer is actually hidden in the portrait of Kuronushi. When there is no one else near the portrait, you can confirm with your own eyes.
It's getting pretty late, so nobody else is around now. So Ayato must have been telling us to splash water on the portrait, right? It's the Balladeer! So he was the one behind the trouble all those years ago!
Real question is, what did Albedo mean that he went to go see a friend?
I mentioned earlier that the occurrence of a certain incident made me notice the bonsai plants. I wish to tell you of that incident now. It was just after the Shogun announced the abolition of the Sakoku decree. I heard that something had happened at the Tenryou Commission. They had discovered signs that someone had entered the warehouse storing the Commission's articles of evidence and confiscated items. But nothing was stolen. I felt something unusual about that incident. So I told Kujo-Sara of the Tenryou Commission to treat it as if nothing happened. She was not to increase the guard or relocate the warehouse contents. In the meantime, I sent a member of the Shumatsuban to keep watch over the warehouse. And sure enough, someone was sneaking in and rummaging through the belongings of the Kaidahara clan.
You mean, he was also looking for...
I let him search for a while, but in the end, he found nothing. Soon after, he had to leave Inazuma by boat.
Why didn't you send someone to catch him?
The best way to protect a secret is to treat it as if it doesn't exist, is it not? Besides, the identity of this person is not hard to guess. After he left Inazuma, I carefully checked the Kaidahara clan's belongings one by one, and eventually discovered the papers in the hidden compartment of the flower pot. I am certain that the papers are the secret which the infiltrator sought to find, though he couldn't confirm whether this secret existed at all. So, now on to my final question. Which part of Kaidahara Yoshinori's experiences was the secret that needed to be protected? I don't have an answer to this question at present, so I'll leave it to your future self. As for now, please, enjoy yourselves at the Irodori Festival.